Good morning and welcome to today's morning writing. I am your live stream writing accountability partner, Rose Music. Today we're going to be doing things just a little bit differently. We're going to be going from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. This is an iteration that it's an experimental iteration. As all iterations are, you make one tiny adjustment to what you're doing every day, and if it works for you, you continue doing it. If it hinders you, you don't do it. You stop doing it. You know how life experiments typically work. So I'm just going to jump over here and get us all primed in the live chat. In addition to this iteration where we're shortening our time together by half an hour, today is the 1st of February, which means it's time in my journaling to go into the next month and the next calendar pages. And that also requires filling out my review page for the month of January and making sure I'm just all squared away there, that I've marked all the little, that I've made notations of any iterations that I've done over the course of the month. I've noted iterative adjustments. I'm going to be reviewing those and making special notations about lessons learned and things to carry forward. So that's what I'm going to be working on first this morning, because today I actually don't have anything planned. I don't have anything scheduled. There's nothing on the publication schedule that needs to go out for Inkshares, which is good. I'll be able to just take my time this morning and do what needs doing to get myself all squared away for the month of February. And because we will be going for 2 hours straight, I'm not going to be popping in at 10:15 to let you know what a halfway point. I'm not going to even be jumping in at 10. I'm just going to let us all write through for the full 2 hours, and then at 11 o'clock we'll come back together and we'll just have our wrap-up time. And feel free to share in the chat at any time what it is you're working on this morning. No, I want you to tell me how long it is. Jerkweed? Ladies and gentlemen, it is 11:04, which means we should probably wrap up our writing time since we are, as I mentioned earlier, doing a shorter writing time today, just to accommodate some. It's an iteration to see how this affects my morning routine and how it affects my ability to get things done. So, sorry, I have weird focus issues this morning. All right, so our wrap up, checking over here in the chat. Kay said hello. Hello, Kay. I apologize. I'm unable to read the rest of your name. So I'll just get to wrapping up what I worked on. First, because it is the first of the month, I went into the calendar section of my journaling and first moved my bookmark into February so I can jump right to my February spread. This is my what I work on typically during the morning writings. And then this is my early afternoon, evening, and household plan so I can track how I do things. Notes. And being that was the first, I did my January review. Then I transferred over into February, got everything prepped there. The prep was mostly just getting this primed and making myself a few notes here of things that I want to keep in mind during the course of the month. And then I came back and I started working on doing more of a thorough outline of the whole book, Big Magic. For my article, 3 Strikes to Light a Fire, which is about Hans Christian Andersen's Little Match Girl, I outlined part 2, which is about, not permission, enchantment. Her word for inspiration, what I would typically refer to as everyday magic. And I outlined that as part of the preliminary work for writing that article. I'm now outlining the rest of the book to help grease the wheels of a series that I want to write and put on medium.com called Wishful Thinking. And it's wish-full rather than the word wishful, in order to just put that tiniest bit of distance between what I'm writing about and the negative connotations that come up when people think of that phrase, wishful thinking. So that's basically that's what the name of the series will be, and then each series will be a different topic of fairy tale living. So the first section will be about fairy tale living in general, particularly the nature of fear. Then part 2 will be everyday magic, which is about the other side of fear, the other side of what your subconscious is doing, which is inspiring you. Your subconscious is doing both things. It is the daemon or genius that helps move things along or is making things more difficult. It does both jobs. So you are not I am part of that whole creative living philosophy that you are not a genius, but you do have a genius, and it is your subconscious, to which you have your conscious mind has some limited access to, which is nice. Then part 3 of my series will be about living happily ever out there, giving yourself permission to do the questing, giving yourself permission to put yourself out there and to not be, living happily ever after, which means no sequels, no more quests, just everything's kind of after that. It's giving yourself permission to live happily ever out there today and today and today and today, and to just keep the questing going and keep the adventuring and the fun going in your life. And then part 4 is about depthlessness. In fairy tales, you have wells of impossible depth and beanstalks of impossible heights. You never reach the bottom of that well, you never reach the top of the beanstalk. Jack does not reach the top of the beanstalk. He climbs until he gets to the land of the giants. He's at cloud level, sees a castle on a cloud. It's like, oh, if that castle can stand on a cloud, I can certainly stand on a cloud. So I'll just get off the beanstalk here because I've been climbing all friggin' day. So the impossibly deep well and the impossibly tall beanstalk and things of that nature, things that just go on, and there is no end in sight. There is no limit in sight, and there may not be any limit to this thing, to this path in existence. But having that willingness to go along it anyway. And this is different from permission. This is about patience and fortitude coming together in that thing called persistence, and really going along and doing this thing, because you know that you're never going to reach the end. You're never going to reach the utmost limit of whatever this thing is, but you are going to experience something along the way, and it's what you know. The experience will happen along the way is what's important to you. So depthlessness. And after that, part 4, fairy tale living, everyday magic, happily ever out there, depthlessness, intuitive logic is part 5. Part 5 is intuitive logic. Being able to see how things fit together, having the sort of intuitive leaps, trusting that intuitive leap, taking intuitive leaps, just acting on your instincts after you've gotten in better conversation with your subconscious, working with your daemon rather than against your daemon, and knowing when to trust your daemon and knowing when to trust yourself, and where those two can intersect a little bit. And then the 4th is about the sublime, about those things that leave you just gobsmacked. They just seemingly come out of nowhere. You have no idea what the chain of events was that led to this thing suddenly being in your life, but now it is here. And it is like a godsend. And it does that. There are, and it's not about having faith that kind of thing will happen. It's not about hoping that thing will happen. It's about being open to that thing You're not reliant on this thing that is completely out of your control, that you can't even see its trajectory. You have no idea it's even on the horizon. It's not about expecting that kind of thing to happen. It's about being open so that when something like that happens, you can embrace it if it helps you, or adapt and dance with it if it presents a challenge to you. So it's just a series I wanted to write because in her book, Big Magic, those, the parts line up straight through, but she has these ideas in the book that I do not agree with. And while in the book, she says, clearly this is a self-help guide. It's like, I got to tell you, it is not a self-help guide. It's not. There are self-help elements, but this is not a self-help book. This is half of a conversation, or it is the beginning of a conversation, or it is a chapter in a conversation that she has said herself she's been having for years with people. When she meets them, She put that conversation into book form after giving many speeches about it, and continues to give talks about it and interviews. And she continues to talk about it with continue the conversation after the book with the podcast that she was running and on her Facebook page. So the conversation is ongoing, and I am presenting wishful thinking as my contribution to that conversation, because there are many points I agree with and there are many points I do not agree with, and that is how conversations work. She has presented her ideas in book form. I'm going to present my ideas in series form. She said something and now I'm responding. That's how conversations work. All right. So that concludes our wrap up here today and our 2 hours for this morning. Oh, do you use any medium to boost your imagination ideas? Like music, Safari, etc. Okay, so hi, Shansha. So tools that I use for boosting inspiration or boosting my imagination. All right. So I read. Mostly reading will get the gears going. If I'm watching something on TV that is fiction, it doesn't get the gears going. My brain does this thing where I retell the story to myself as I'm going, and I'm retelling it to myself in about 15 different ways. I'm gender swapping characters. I'm redesignating dialogue to alternate characters in the story. I'm basically editing the movie to see, so that I'm kind of experiencing 15 different movies at the same time. Though perfect movies, it's every now and then there are movies that my brain does not do that automatically, and those are the movies that I will watch for inspiration purposes. And it's usually more of a mood booster rather than to give me an idea. So movies that have really worked for me are is his name? His name is not Jean-Luc Picard, because that's the captain from Star Trek. Rose, no. Jean-Pierre Jeunet, that's his name. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is an incredible cinematic storyteller. His film Amelie, I watch that a lot when I need a mood boost. I actually could probably watch that today as a mood boost. That would probably help. So thanks for asking that question, putting that in my brain. Certain things from my childhood I would not change. And so just to get that nostalgia, just to get that kind of, just to rekindle that sense of wonder from when I was a kid, I'll watch those. So Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater. Actually, Jean-Pierre Jeunet's Amelie is a good film. Shelley, checking the spelling as it sits on my shelf. Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater, which is ridiculous. She basically just got all of her director and actor friends, just all of her Hollywood friends, just to make these 26 fairy tales into separate episodes. I think my favorite line from the whole series, well, definitely top 5, is in The Three Little Pigs, when the brother who makes the house out of sticks meets a female pig who they happen to throw into the story for clearly comedic and semi-sexist purposes, is he sees her for the first time and he goes to flirt with her and says, "Well, hey there, bacon bits, where have you been all my life?" Just one pig saying to another, "Hey there, bacon bits, where have you been all my life?" It's amazing. Yesterday I observed that you're doing so much things to get focus. When I get uncomfortable, I haven't been uncomfortable. When I look out the window, I'm thinking. Like everything that's going on outside of my apartment is, the white noise of my life. It's kind of the sound machine. So sometimes when I'm trying to think things, when I'm just trying to be open to ideas and whatnot, when I'm just trying to zone out and not put too much pressure on myself to like be working through my to-do list, which is over here. And yeah, I do have a lot of things to help me maintain focus, and that's because I have OCD, and so planning ahead. And one of my compulsions is an avoidance compulsion that will actually cause me to get trapped in my head. I can't decide where to go. So before, uncomfortable equals missing the focus. Okay, so you're saying that I'm unfocused when I look out here. I mean, that's true, but it's not uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable when I'm looking out the window. The only time I think I'm getting uncomfortable is when whatchamacallit, is when something goes along. Like there was some glitchiness going on as I was typing before, and it was annoying me, and that was uncomfortable. But I do have lots. I have my to-do list that I make before, outside of the window when the work needs to happen. I spend, or no, that's not true. Sometimes it's inside the window. Basically, when I have the clarity of mind to make a plan, I make a plan for myself. I write down what needs to get done. I put it on the calendar. I put it in the schedule. And I write it down when I have that clarity of mind. That way, as I'm working, I don't have to be trying to remember everything. I can just flip to where I am, and I can tell from my notations, all right, these little dots are the things that I have pre-written. The X's mean that it's been published. So that means the next thing I have to work on writing-wise would be this introduction to the donor sequence. And then once I'm done writing that, I put a dot on it. And then on February 19th, when it comes time to publish it, I'll put an X over that little dot to show that it's good to go. So I do have lots of little things to help me keep focused. I did switch the other day from printing my own loose leaf to printing a cross between loose leaf and grid paper, which I also made myself. That way, when I make my bullet point lists, everything stays neater and there's more visual organization going on. I'm not very visual in terms of my writing exercises, but in terms of making lists and bullet points and things like that, I do like for it to be neater so my eye can go right to the information I need immediately. Not related to mathematics. All right, so you have written here, Induction to Donner Series related to mathematics. I'm guessing that's a mistype. That is either a mistype or you misheard what I said. The introduction to the donor series. Well, actually, it's the donor sequence. The book that I've been working on for the past 23 days now is 31 Days of Narratemes, a guided journal for questing the crap out of your daily self-care. And it's split into 4 sections. The 3rd section is the donor sequence. And narratemes come from Russian folklore. The Russian folklorist Vladimir Prop discovered that there are the 31 most basic units of storytelling and narrative structure. And he named these teeny tiny units that you stack together to make a folk tale. He named those units narratemes. So in my own reading of the narratemes and applying them to fairy tales, I saw that there were really distinct parallels between what was going on in the construction of fairy tales and what goes on in a person's inner life when they're taking care of themselves. And so that was the impetus for the guided journal that I'm working to publish on Inkshares now, which is linked in the info box below the video. 30. That's the bit.ly/31 Days of Narratemes, or I believe it's actually the Inkshares link that's in the info box below. But either way, it'll take you to the Inkshares page. And the 31 Days of Narratemes are split into 4 spheres. And the third sphere or section, the donor sequence, is about when the hero of the story, when the protagonist is meeting a teacher or a mentor or someone who's going to give them a tool that they need. So it's about, that section is about, that I need to write the introduction to for my own guided journal, is you can say words, Rose. That section is what I need to work on next, is about opening yourself to learning and knowing how you're creating learning opportunities for yourself and how you're pushing them away. Any novel upcoming? All right, so if you look at the name of the video, it says 1.023. That means we're on day 23 of 100 days. The one before the decimal point just tells you how many rounds of 100 days I've done of morning writing, or I'm on. This is my first time doing 100 days of morning writing on YouTube. So for these 100 days, I'm working on 31 Days of Narratemes. Then after this 100 days is over, I'll break. I haven't decided for how long yet. It'll be 12 days or 24 days, probably just 12. And then I'll have another 100 days where I'm working on my memoir on Inkshares, which will be the ABCs of Hoarding Like a Dragon. And then break, 100 days of working on a guidebook called Putting the Puss in Boots, the Master Cat Method for Living Happily Ever Out There, because fairy tales are far, far away from being irrelevant. And that will also include the planner sheets that I've been making for the Master Cat Master Planner. It's all in the plan. And after that, that's what I'll be working on, a novel. I'll be working on a book called Sally Forth for 100 days. And it is a young adult paranormal book. It is not a young adult romance novel. While the main character does have a crush on her very good friend, and her very good friend has a crush on her, nothing happens because the main character is a ghost and she can't actually directly interact with her crush. The only person she can directly interact with is a vampire who her sister friggin' hates. And the book actually opens with her sister killing her so that she won't become a zombie. Yeah, I'm this project, next project, 200 days in between, 77 days to go on this project. So yeah, I'm 277 days plus 24, so actually 300 days because you have to calculate in the breaks, and actually then another 12, so 312. I'm about 10 months out from working on the novel. But the first 3 chapters of that novel, Sally Forth, currently titled Sally Forth Intrigue, I do have to retitle it to just Sally Forth. The Sally Forth Intrigue is available for reading on inkshares.com. The first 3 chapters, which I don't know how major that rewrite is going to be. But it might not even be a full novel. It may turn into a novella because of just how tight the cast is and how very straightforward the storyline is. It's not encompassing enough to really be a novel, which I don't mind. Sometimes you just got to trust that a project's going to be what a project's going to be. But yeah, so that'll be, if I work on a novel, that'll be the soonest that happens. And then I don't have another novel in the works. Well, I actually don't have, after Sally Forth, I'll work on Magic Beans, Filling the Law of Attraction's Tall Order. that one will be after Sally Forth. And I haven't decided what creative project comes up after that one. And I'm waiting till I'm closer to the date of that to try to get my sister to work with me on a space opera that we started writing last year, a year ago, called The Janitors. And the first chapter of that is up on Inkshares. That project is on pause because it's linked to her Inkshares account, because the idea for the book is initially hers, and she studied writing for film and television in college, and she really wants the Janitors to be a show. But there were whispers, you could say, over Christmas that she's been thinking about the book a lot and wondering if maybe she should just work with me and get the book written. So give her some space, and then I'll bring it up when I'm closer to having a window where I can schedule it in to work on. I once thought about romantic relationship between man with ghost or man with goddess. It is a classic storyline. The idea of an individual liking someone who is, in a place of infinite, is in a state of infinite existence, but without wanting to eat them. It goes back to incredibly deep shamanic storytelling roots of helping people, of these stories being a way of telling, of sharing the struggle of wanting to live forever, of fearing death and wanting something beautiful to be there on the other side, and also wanting some piece of you to live forever, that sort of instinct for leaving a legacy, having a name for yourself. There are so many different angles to take with a romantic relationship between a living mortal and someone who has passed, or someone who is immortal. And there's so many things to do with it, and there are so many archetypes at work in terms of traditional storytelling. And yeah, in Sally Forth, though, the romance is kind of just this comedic thing. Whenever they have romances in young adult novels, and it's just always blown so out of proportion, because and I get it, I remember being a teenager, and the feeling has not gone away all entirely, that like hormonal feeling of once you're attracted to someone, that's it, like you would battle dragons for that person. But it can get so infuriating, especially if the book is written from the perspective of the protagonist. You're just locked in their head with their thoughts, and they're just emotional brain gush. It can get really difficult to stomach after a while, in my opinion. So the book, while it'll follow Janie's experience as a ghost, it won't be in her head. It'll be third person limited on there, the narrative voice. But it's a humor. It's partly humorous and partly dramatic. And the more I work on it, the more it's about the sisters, Janie and Beth, than it is about Janie and the vampire or Janie and her crush, her reciprocated crush with her best friend who's a werewolf. She is awesome. The werewolf character is awesome. I think I named her Taylor. I named her Taylor, right? Should double check that. Oh, man. Yeah. I really like the characters that I've created for that particular book. So, but that's a while out, and I do have the preliminary outline of that book, so it should be smooth sailing when I get back to it, and I do look forward to doing that. But for now, it is 11:35. I should log off. And I'll be back on tomorrow from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, just to continue with this iteration of just the straight 2 hours of morning writing time together. A story about a man confused in between his dream and reality. Also, another classic. The thing, so the information you're giving here, you're just romantic relationship between man and some sort of mortal and benign immortal, and now story of mortal who cannot tell dream from reality. And these are, how do I explain this? That's a root story. What you've done is you've made a root story. I don't need to actually draw this. I can just describe it. Plus, I can't draw that well. When you say man in love, mortal in love with immortal, there are hundreds of books out there. There are hundreds of movies out there. If you're talking about a man confused between dream and reality, again, hundreds of stories out there. Because when you're able to get so down, as you have in your descriptions here, so like bare bones of the story that you've not actually given me any details about the characters or what your particular angle is, I mean, I can riff for a while on the different possibilities of what to do in with those root stories. But me riffing on them is me cultivating the tree, is me cultivating a tree and watching it leaf and watching it bear fruit. And you have roots here. You have a seedling. Cultivate that into a tree. I'm not seeing a tree yet. I'm just seeing roots, and the roots run deep. But also, the roots running deep, that's research you should get on, because those are storylines that have been done, because all storylines have been done. Let's be honest, they just haven't been done by you, and so I'm not seeing you in those story ideas. I am seeing the root story that so many people have worked with, and each done in their own way. I'm not seeing your angle of it. You thought once about a mortal and an immortal. What did you think? You thought once about someone confused about what's real and what isn't real. And potentially, I'm guessing, the nature of reality, because that tends to come to question the nature of reality when you have a character who can't tell between dream and between reality and various mental fictions. So like all you've told me is the root story. You haven't told me what you thought about it. Just sort of an acknowledgement that the root story has existed thus far. So maybe that's something to work on in your own writing time tomorrow or in future days, is to take the root and to flesh it out for yourself, to cultivate that tree on your own and see what is there that you are thinking for yourself. What is that story that is unique to you, unique to your voice and to your ideas regarding the different meanings and topics and things that are evoked when you start with that root story. And now it is 11:40. It is 11:40, and yes, I will be here tomorrow from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining me today and for chatting with me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you tomorrow morning. Good journey, my friends.